Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the enhancement system that we have on PTS currently. And again, first and foremost, just mentioning that all of this stuff might still change at some point, right? We have no idea if... yeah, have them overlay all stream. I'm not going to do that. But anyways, we don't know if any of this stuff will actually, like, go live, or we don't know if it's actually bugged in some way. This is just information that we currently have on PTS based on what we know and the testing that we've done for the enhancement system. And the enhancement system I'm talking about is this damage type system. And again, I hate saying damage type. I feel like there needs to be a better name for this, because weapon damage types and damage types resistances, we've, for 7 years, have always said, you know, magic damage type, range damage type, melee damage type, healing damage type, siege damage type. So this is weird to now refer to this as a different system, even though, like, really it should be weapon types, right? But it's, gosh, it's weird and awkward, and I don't know what to call it. But this is the system that I'm talking about, right? The piercing, slashing, and the new ones, blasting, bludgeoning, and then also crushing, which is not a new one. These things, right? And these things are actually going to also affect magic and healing as well, right? So this is actually new to 6.5, is that magic and healing gain from this as well, because blasting is a magic thing from scepters and staves, and bludgeoning is a healing thing with clubs and great clubs, right? We tested those, those all actually do work. You can actually, supposedly, you can heal somebody who is cloth or leather and have a little bit of a higher boost to how much you're healing them. That one we couldn't test, that specific one with healing, but we did test the magic one, and it does work. So that's pretty cool. Magic's, magic damage from blasting will do even more damage to plate and leather. So there's a few things that we need to also talk about right at the beginning here, and that is that the reason why we could test any of this stuff at all is because A, there's currently a bug on PTS that allows us to test these things quite accurately, and the bug is that all weapons of any type, crushing or slashing, for melees, currently, and this has been in the game for some time, but they have a weapon attack speed that varies from 0.8 to 1.3, right? And that weapon attack speed for melee skills only affects the global cooldown time and the animation time, as well as the damage, right? So a dagger will be faster at 0.8 because it's 20% faster. However, it does 20% less damage, whereas an axe has a 1.1 attack speed on the actual weapon itself, and that means that it's 10% slower on global cooldown and animation time. However, does pretty close to 10% more damage than an average sword or katana would at their attack speed of 1.0. However, right now in PTS it's bugged. The damage does not actually change. All weapons are currently acting like 1.0. And of course, if this goes live, that means that daggers for some time until this gets fixed will actually be extremely OP, because not only are they faster, but they do they do the regular amount of damage. So they're actually a little bit overpowered right now. It's compared to everything else. They're best in slot until this is fixed, right? And hopefully it does get fixed soon, because this is quite ridiculous. But anyways, because of this bug, we're actually allowed to test this stuff quite specifically because of the varying different weapon types, right? The weapon types of crushing versus slashing, which affect different types of armor with additional damage. There's one more thing we have to talk about before we get into everything, and that is the fact, it's actually one of the things that we learned. Let me bring these up. So I have these on screen. Right at the very bottom here, which you guys, I can't show you guys on the screen, or maybe I can. Can I put a red dot somewhere? No, I can't really. All right. Well, near the bottom of the screen, this talks a little bit about daggers and slashing, and gosh, what was I just about to talk about? Let me read here. Trying to think. Okay, yeah. So there's a couple things here. One of them is that one of them is that the actual base value, like the lowest value of damage increase, essentially, with let's say an axe with crushing level 0. Okay, this is just an example. So crushing does more damage, additional damage, I should say, to leather and plate, both at medium levels. Okay, and slashing, which is a dagger thing, as well as a sword thing, does and also katana, but whatever. Anyways, slashing does more damage to leather, which is a high value, and cloth, which is a low value. Okay, we need to keep these in mind, because what we kind of tested is that at level 0, you'd think that because of these buffs, these armor buffs from people, like leather here, that says receives 15% more damage from slashing attacks, or plate, which says 20% from crushing, 15% from piercing, you'd think that those still apply, but they don't, actually. It's actually completely gone. All of these systems from these leather sets, cloths, well, cloth doesn't have one, but, right, because cloth has nothing, but from leather and plate, totally gone. And now it's replaced with this system, okay? And the base value of the additional damage you do is not 15 or 20% anymore. Technically, there's no RNG to it anymore either. Before, there was a 50% chance to proc this extra damage from slashing attacks, and you'd actually see it in the combat log. In the combat log, it would say cut additional damage or something like that, and then you'd actually have the value for it. But all of that is gone, completely gone, and now the only thing that we know exists is this menu right here, which tells us that it exists, and that's about it, right? So the further sort of testing that we did helps address what everything means. So let me get back to it. The level 0 amount of how much a level 0 weapon helps against a specific armor type, it actually varies between high, medium, and low for these damage values. And so what we tested is that, I'll bring this on screen. Where is it? It's, I believe, in the second section. So we're going to focus on this one. And in here, we tested the difference between medium to high was about 2%. The difference between low to high, where is it? The difference between no to low was about less than 1% or 1%. And so we can assume maybe the difference between no damage bonus versus high damage bonus is maybe about 5 to 6%, something like that. This is the new baseline. So at level 0 enhancement, you only get like maybe a 5% boost in damage against the actual armor type that you're fighting. This is totally different and totally new and not what people were expecting, because people were probably also expecting this stuff that's written in the descriptions, but that is not the case. And it's so easy to test because of this bug, right? We have a crushing weapon and a dagger, which is a slashing weapon, that do the exact same amount of damage across everything, but they're just different weapon types. They have all the same stats, completely all the same stats. We're not even using crits to measure any of this. We're just using non-crits. And we can actually see how this works. It was actually a perfect test. And so this is how we sort of got these values, right? So it's kind of important to know that the old system is totally gone. Don't even think about it anymore. This is probably the 4th time they've made changes to this whole system. So, it's hard to come back to this game when literally everything under the rug changes, right? They keep pulling the rug out from underneath us. But that is actually what's going on, right? So please keep that in mind, okay? So that's something that's like the first thing we're talking about. Okay, now, let's go into this stuff. Let's go into the full thing. So, first of all, we're going to talk about just what exactly is this additional damage. The first note is already wrong. So it says only supposedly works on Tier 5 Haram, Tier 3 Aranor, and Tier 3 Library Gear. Okay, that's the first note here. That's already wrong, actually, because we found out that it also works on Tier 1 Aranor. But again, you can't scale up Tier 1 Aranor, like from level 0 crushing or from level 0 slashing. Right, you can't enhance them any further. So while they do gain the level 0 bonus of maybe 5% more damage, they can't do any more than that. Whereas these particular weapons, Tier 3 Library, Tier 3 Aranor, Tier 5 Haram, you can actually go and enhance and make them further enhance their bonus against a specific armor type or types, right? Number 2, it's not in the combat log anymore. I talked about that earlier. Number 3, if you can actually tell you're doing additional damage because on screen there's an actual, like the damage floaties, the floating numbers that appear on screen when you do damage to something, they actually have a little up arrow next to them. And that tells you that you're doing currently more damage to something based on some kind of additional damage. Now, I've found some bugs here, like one day this showed that it worked, one day that it didn't. Like near the bottom it says, one day it showed a dagger not having a bonus against leather, even though it has a high bonus against leather, but then the next, or maybe I relogged in and suddenly it does. So there's some weirdness going on there with the up arrows, but that's supposed to be I guess it's supposed to be the way to tell us that we're doing additional damage to something. And then number 4 is that all of the armors can also be enhanced at these particular tiers, and they all help reduce the additional damage done by weapons that are meant to be good against that armor, and that armor alone. In other words, if you go and enhance, world boss equipment or Aranor equipment, or the top end equipment that's armor, if you go enhance them from level 0 to level 5 maximum, you are only taking away extra damage from the types of weapons that are good against you. So if you level up plate, to like level 4, like I have here, you're actually only going to be defending against blasting and a little bit from piercing, because that's what normally would be good against you. Even though this particular plate gives me resistances to everything, this is completely untrue, because since I have a plate buff, it's actually only just doing it for blasting. It's really strange, or blasting and a little bit from piercing too, right? Because piercing is also kind of affected. So this whole section is a little weird, and the fact they give us all these numbers is just odd. But it does, and it doesn't make any sense, because we increased the amount of resistances and saw that the exact same damage was coming at us from other sources other than what this is supposed to be good against. So it's a little weird, but that's a thing, right? So that's the 4th bullet point there. Also, oh wait, you guys can't see my screen. So what I'm talking about is, well, you guys know, I've kind of already went over it. So this bottom section here, I should put it like this. I'm going to go over it again for you guys. There we go. So this bottom section here, even though it says that it's giving me numbers for piercing, slashing, blasting, crushing, just when I put this on, right? Do that. See? Anyways, because it says that, it doesn't mean anything. It's actually only working for blasting and a little bit from piercing, okay? Just because that's how this whole system works. Blasting is good against plate, piercing is low good against plate, and so when I enhance plate, that's what it's actually giving me, because I have a plate buff on, okay? Hopefully that kind of makes sense for that 4th bullet point. Next, we noticed that there's a bunch of things we kind of noticed. Number 1, in our first tests with staffs and magic damage, with blasting, we noticed that every time we increased the weapon by 1 level, we only gained about a 1% extra damage boost. And this actually kind of makes sense, because if that's true, then when you level up the weapon to level 10, you get 15% extra damage boost in total, right? The 5% to start, plus the 10% you get, that's 15%. That's actually kind of close to what you currently have on armor in some cases, so maybe that makes sense, right? So that was one thing we noticed initially. We can kind of guess that maybe medium and low types give a little bit less, right? So like, maybe medium or low gives half a percentage of extra damage instead of a full percentage of extra damage. But then later we debunked all this. But we weren't using magic for the debunked stuff, so we'll get into it. You guys can read all the specific things on screen, but that's kind of the stuff that we figured out, right? And as we go through this list, things kind of change and get weirder and weirder. So, let me also talk about one more thing, and that is with the melee weapons, what we did with the melee weapons here. So, with the melee weapons, we found that actually every time you level it up from, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, the actual value of how much you got per level went up by, let's see, gosh, where is it in here? I think it was 2 or 3%. Might have been a little bit more. Let's see, what did I put here? Testing with hard duo and PTS, we learned the difference between medium. No, that wasn't it. Here it is, the very last one. Tested how much you level from 0 to 1. On high bonus, turned out to be 3%. So this section right here. We found it actually to be 3% every time we leveled up a melee weapon, and we were testing it against a high damage bonus armor, which is weird, because the magic versus plate that we tested before, where we got 1% up here, now it's like 3%. So I don't know, there's some weird variance there that doesn't quite make sense, but that's something that we've documented, right? And again, the whole point of this is so that hopefully people go and continue testing these things. But, there it is. That's kind of the information, right? So, keeping all of those numbers in mind, keeping everything in mind, yes, probably at level 10 weapon, you can maybe get back to like a 15-20% damage boost against, certain armor types. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if magic is intentionally lower versus the melees, going up in level 0 to level 1 and in enhancement levels to be intentionally higher. It might actually be intended that way, and we'll have no idea why or how, because all of those values are hidden to us. So that might actually be fact, right? But we found this discrepancy, and we're sort of reporting on it and how that works. So there's a lot of weirdness to the system. It's very complicated. And again, this old system of what we had in text here, complete leather set, or leather set gives 15% extra from slashing, or the plate set that gives crushing, and all of that's gone. Totally gone. That doesn't exist anymore. We've already proven that that's not real, and actually the base value of level 0, which affects all weapons across the board, or at least also a tier 1 Aranor, because that's what we tested, is like 5%, right? So, and maybe that's just melee, right? Maybe that was just a melee sword. Maybe magic does even less than 5% as its level 0. So there might be some things we don't know yet. But this is how the system works currently. Here's just information about it, and we're still trying to learn a little bit more. I'm tired, personally, of all of this stuff. It's been so mind-numbing, and thankfully, because of Cosmo's help, I was able to actually get armors, duplicate armors here to help me test these things, duplicate weapons to help me test these things. I went and spent, I had 600 Serendipity Stones, now I'm down to 204, of just changing all the stats to be exactly the same, where they need to be in order to test this stuff. It was kind of crazy. So there's a lot to this, and hopefully you guys can appreciate that and can continue this knowledge and learning and try to figure out what exactly is going on. But I did want to at least put this as notes, as a highlight for everybody, on a YouTube channel to be able to sort of learn from and continue from. Cool? Is that good? I think I covered everything. If I didn't cover something, it was in here, in this segment of notes that I have on screen right now. So you can go through there and you can look at those, and then please feel free to try them yourselves. I think that's all that I wanted to say about it. And if I forgot something else, well, I might put it into the YouTube highlight or something, or we'll talk about it later in the actual stream itself. This highlight is here for you guys, as well as the full stream of where I actually took this highlight. It's also up on YouTube as well. You can go look at those right now. Cool? Are we good? Cool. Highlight's done. Thanks, guys.